Hi team, welcome to the Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast. My name is James McFetrich and this is an ongoing toolkit for all healthcare staff. Whether you are a porter or a paediatrician, a domestic or a driver, clinical or non-clinical, just starting or just finishing your work in healthcare, this podcast aims to give you some useful thoughts about working for this amazing business to get you through your day. Hello, this episode is all about sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream. I'm fairly sure that's a quote from Hamlet. And I think of that, that moment when you get into bed, you're tired, but you know you're going to sleep well. Maybe you don't have anything on the next day to get up for. You settle down, turn the light off. But then those thoughts come in. Oh God, those thoughts about what you've seen today at work, what traumas you might have witnessed. If you're treating patients, what might you have done better? What's happening with them now? So difficult to try and stop those thoughts because we get so involved and tied up with the clinical work that we do. So I thought it really interesting to just have a little think about sleep and its relation to healthcare work. We all know that sleep's important to function well at work. I remember during lockdown, just when online seminars were really starting to big up, there was a specific seminar for NHS staff in the UK about sleep. And I thought, oh, this is good. Clearly we're not sleeping very well. Lots of things going on in work and outside of work. And it was horrific. There was a good 3/4 of an hour where the people running it were just telling us how important sleep was, which is great, but mainly by saying how bad it was for you physically and mentally when you don't sleep well. Very little on how to try and improve this, but just telling us all these horrible statistics about the effect on your physical and mental health when you sleep badly. And I guess that's the difficulty, that it's so personal to us. How do we improve our good night sleep when there's so many factors that may be affecting it? Well, clearly it's a massive topic, and I don't want to sort of get into the full issues about how to get a good night's sleep. I think it's probably beyond this podcast, but I do want to focus on sleep issues that are related to work. And as I think I said before, I am planning to cover the specifics about doing night shifts, and I'll involve sleep relating to that later on in a separate episode. For those of you who are interested, maybe you've not thought about it before, easy to search up stuff on the internet, but very broadly, the kind of things to try and make sure that you are giving yourself the best possible option to sleep. Getting into a good sleep routine, often called sleep hygiene, finding ways to relax and unwind at least an hour before you go to bed, getting comfortable with mindfulness, and that can help if you wake during the night, as well as getting off to sleep, making sure your environment for sleep is good for you, and not forgetting the effect of diet and exercise, which clearly has a massive impact on sleep. It's definitely well worth the time having a look at those simple things if you do have issues with sleep. But like I say, I want to focus on sleep and work in healthcare. So for myself, I've had a really interesting relationship with sleep. I guess it's probably not too much to say I come from a family of bad sleepers. My grandparents on my dad's side were of the generation, if you couldn't sleep, you'd go on benzodiazepines to sleep, just as a very routine thing. My mum has always been an early riser, and I don't think she'd ever call herself a good sleeper. And I probably have a similar pattern to her. I can sleep well. I do like a lion, but often my brain will wake me up early. As far as work, well, when I started work in healthcare, that was in the late 90s in the UK, and that was in the bad old days of 56-hour weekends. Turn up to work Saturday morning, 8 a.m., and you'd finish Monday afternoon at 4 p.m. Couldn't leave the site. Clearly, that would cover 2 nights, and one of those nights you'd be on call, where you'd get next to no sleep. It was just busy the whole time. And the other night you were second on call, so only called if it was particularly busy, which of course most of the time it was, and you may get 3 or 4 hours interrupted sleep. That was my introduction to working life and trying to navigate, be able to work and sleep, although clearly that sleep, when it did happen, it was usually in an office on a chair, not very good quality sleep. And that carried on for a few years. I can remember when I did anaesthetics and we were on the cardiac arrest team from an anaesthetic point of view, and we'd often get a number of calls through the night, both for cardiac arrest and for anaesthetic duties. I remember one night being so tired, and I think I'd got to bed at about 4 a.m, that time at night where your circadian rhythm is right down low. It's really difficult to focus, and I very quickly fell really deeply asleep. And then I dreamt that I'd had another cardiac arrest call, and shortly after I woke up, and I wasn't clear, was that real life or had I dreamt it? So I phoned up switchboard to ask if they'd just put a call out, which indeed they had. And so I had to do as we had to, just get up. We didn't have to get dressed because we were already dressed in our scrubs, but put some shoes on and run off to the call. I don't know how many people listening still have the opportunity to sleep in hospital while at work. I think it's far better to think of it as potential rest rather than sleep. It's so difficult to sleep in that environment. Later on in my career, I was on call from home, and that starts off as 1 in 5, and always felt that I slept badly. Often wouldn't get in till after midnight, and then it was always restless, never a good quality sleep. And that's really tricky to manage as well. And if anyone has any good ways of trying to sort of manage those types of sleep, whether you are at work and there for long enough that you have that potential for rest during the night, or if you're on call from home, please do get in touch, because I'd be really interested what people's solutions are to that. I thought I'd talk more about what is common to the majority of people, that focusing on sleep at home where you don't have any work commitments, and how when you're trying to drift off to sleep, like I said right at the start, about how you get your focus away from work. Because as I described right at the beginning, it really is that sense of, yeah, I'm fine, I'm relaxed, I'm settled. And then as soon as the quiet of the bedroom and it's dark, it's so easy to start running through the day. So a few things that I've picked up over the years. None of these are easy, but hopefully some of them may help you, and you can add it to your toolkit for how to cope with these kind of things better for yourself. And I think the main thing is to try and offload your thoughts. So 2-3 hours before you're likely to go to bed, ideally, try and offload your thoughts about work. Now, whether that's to a partner, a friend, a family member, whether that's before you leave work, on your way home, just it's a way of processing what has happened through the day, especially if you've seen something that has emotionally affected you, or if you're still thinking through the repercussions of a case that you've seen. Then we just need that opportunity to think through it, and it's so much easier with someone else. And the other person, often they just need to listen. Now, I'm probably not very good at doing this for my wife, just sitting there listening, because I want to try and solve things. But often all we need to offload is just a sounding board. They don't need to comment. They don't need to praise what you've done. They don't need to solve. It's literally someone to talk at. If you haven't got that person, or maybe this would suit you better, just writing those thoughts down about what is on your mind. Either way, the important thing is to make sure that you set aside time to do this and make that part of your routine if you are struggling to sleep after a day at work. Other things that may be on your mind are a list of things you've got to do, especially again if it's patient related or you've got a busy day coming up. So writing a to-do list so you can just put that to one side, that these are the things I have to do, and you don't ruminate them while you're trying to sleep. Another thing along similar lines is writing a gratitude list. So we so commonly focus on the negatives. Actually, writing a gratitude list can help you think more in a positive way, and that will be less intrusive while you're trying to get to sleep. Any of those things I think are really helpful. I'm clearly going to advise against putting any of this stuff on social media, but I know some people do, and I think that's the weird world that we're in, that feels maybe appropriate, but clearly you don't want any patient identifiable information out there in the real world as a way for you to process things. And also, once it's out there, I guess there's going to be that desire to get feedback and comments from people on whatever social media platform, and that also will mean that you're less likely to finish processing this stuff before you go to sleep. They're just a few thoughts that may or may not help you. Have a think about it. If you do have difficulty sleeping, if you know you have sometimes where you get to bed and you're still processing things from work, have a think about how you can try and solve it. In the show notes, I'll put a couple of links to things that explore this in a bit more detail. And one thing where we can really help ourselves is some self-help cognitive behavioral therapy. That's really useful for trying to uncover those recurrent intrusive thoughts that threaten your sleep. And it's clearly not going to be as good as CBT directly with the help of a professional, but a lot of those techniques we can start ourselves, and you may want to look that up to try and help. The final thing I'd recommend is meditation. I used the Headspace app for a number of years, and just a way of focusing your mind to unfocus it, if that's not a contradiction in terms, but just thinking about how we are aware of our thoughts and how we can help understand how our brain processes that information. Meditation is very much focused on that, and it's not always easy to get into that way of thinking, but it may help. And again, I find that really helps if I do wake in the middle of the night and my brain starts ticking over about stuff, just to try some of those meditation techniques to help you appreciate how thoughts are coming into your mind, but also they can just drift away as well. I really hope that helps. If nothing else, have a think as a result of this about how you may manage your sleep, and hopefully there are a few hints and tips there that you may want to think about a bit further and try and see if we can get that well-needed good night's sleep. Thank you for listening today. Let me know what you thought about this episode. I am on @JMacEducation on all the socials, and there are links in the show notes for anything that we've talked about today that may be of interest or further reading for you. I'd be really grateful if you could rate, review and subscribe, and most importantly, if you found this helpful, please tell your colleagues about this podcast. So please take care of yourselves out there. You are doing a great job, and remember, be kind, be curious, and don't forget your comfortable shoes. Thank you to Shakina Studio for the music, downloaded through Audio Jungle. Thank you to Beth for the artwork and the photo produced through Canva, and thank you to Buzzsprout for hosting the podcast. The Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast is a JMac Education production.